getting back into it, stacking these good habits this week. Coming into the weekend, feeling mm, probably probably the weekends I'd have to say are probably more tougher for me to more or less, I would say, handle the type of emotions during the week. I work a little bit more, but sometimes I still do my weekends. But every so often, you got to be kind of alone with your feelings, which make you really start to kind of stack those bad feelings and those bad behaviors start to want to creep up. So sometimes the weekends for me are just a little bit, I don't know, a little bit tougher, I guess, more than some people. It's when you really start to think about your real depth of feelings. Today, though, I like to try to do these after a run. So today, I got a little run in, trying to get back to feeling better for the week. And really, they start to make me think and reminisce on maybe ideas during the week, last couple months, could be a couple years. Sometimes I try to put on something small. I don't usually always do music, but sometimes I do a podcast just in general so that I can hear maybe how people are articulating maybe their feelings or their thoughts or plans in general that I could institute in myself just to hit that 1% each day. I don't really take somebody's full plan. I don't believe in listening to things for the whole motivational thing. I think that if you speak to what you feel and what you know, and you can help somebody by even helping yourself by just getting emotions out, that can be huge. I think that can make a huge difference for things and make a huge difference for people. And for me, it means a lot to me to be able to do that. I know people sometimes hit me up and talk to me about it. So for me, when you do those types of things, there's parts of your life that the ego drives so much of it. And the idea of that is that your ego is every single thing you have underneath what you really can see face value, right? So you can kind of go about your day and be like, well, I know what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. There's no changing it. I don't care. This is who I am no matter what. Where that really can get you in trouble because you're saying it outright, outward, but that's not what you mean inward or what you're feeling inward all the time. A lot of the time that could be a coping mechanism. A lot of the time that can just be your way of being scared. People take it as an arrogance where you're not always arrogant. You're just so scared to really let something out. God forbid you let something out and somebody takes it as a weakness to you and you believe you will be looked at less as good as you ever have. That right there will just shut you off. That right there shuts you down, makes you not want to talk about it. But it's the ego to have the arrogance, number one, to think that somebody would even view you like that or want to take something from you because you have an arrogance to think that you have something that maybe somebody wants to take from you. And that's an arrogance. That's having an ego. That's having aspects to your life where you believe that you are more valuable than what you are. And when you realize what your value is, or who you're valuable to, or what type of value you are, like, you know, that's huge. That's major. Because you might think that you're valuable in this type of sense, when in reality, that's not even where your value stands with you or anybody else. That's major. In my life, I went about a lot of time believing that I was valuable in a sense of I could create a better environment for somebody by utilization of some of the vices that I had had. And in my mind, it created this articulated false self-reality that if I could sit here and maybe pleasure somebody in such a way, even though it's not for me in my sense of thought for me, I could help them see things better and see what they deserve in life and who they need to be with, not even me, but anybody else to never be treated badly. And then you stack that with so many different people. And all you're doing is feeding your own ego because you believe that you make that much of a difference on doing something that in reality is a negative because you're trying to prove the opposite of it by the action. And you just keep stacking these ideas and these behaviors. And I sit here and I would, you know, try to, in my mind, create a false sense of like, well, that's okay. It's okay that you're doing these things. It's okay that you're living this type of life. It's okay that you're pushing those types of things because look at all of the people and all the differences you're making. Are you actually making those differences? In the end of the day, you're really only feeding into your own emotions because yes, could you help somebody in a short term? You're giving that short term investment thinking that that's going to be a long term thing. And it's not because you're not putting a long term investment in every single one of them because you can't. You can't put a long term investment in every small piece of thing in your life. You can only do it to a very minute thing. You can't spread it across. When you spread it across, you just don't have enough to invest out. And then they just become little short-termers, little short-term investments, hoping that one of them pays off, which is fine, but that's not going to really give you what you're looking at because you're feeding those with false investments. Because your ego makes you think that, well, I'm putting this time in. So if I'm putting this time in, it's got to make a difference. It's got to come out good. I'm a good person. I'm doing things that are good for somebody else when you're really not because you're going to tear down everything else, including yourself. And at the base level of it, even if you take it all the way back where you're not looking at just other people because you still have to look at yourself, you start tearing pieces of yourself away by doing that. And if you actually sat there, looked at your own life and said, all right, I can do little things, little good actions for myself, take away the bad stuff, all of it, take it away, and just slowly but surely bring myself up from the bottom. You can rebuild yourself to a point where you won't have those bad aspects in that way. Do you know what I'm saying? You're going to be lonely, you're going to feel bad, you're going to hate every ounce of it. But if you tear yourself down all the way and you get rid of the ego and you say, I'm going to feel like shit because I'm going to say no to everybody, myself included. That's the deal breaker. That you don't say no. You just keep saying yes and yes and yes and yes. And as you say yes and you're creating false things in your brain, you are never going to understand how unbelievable the brain can be because it can manipulate and make you see things that aren't even really there as a reality and you justify it and believe that that's the word. That's not even the word. You know that. You know the things that you ain't supposed to do. We have many guidance aspects in the world that show you guidance systems, whatever, of anything. If you think about it, there's a million things that show you what you can and can't do, how you can live and how you can't. And yet when you start going down the path of something negative and you know it feels negative, you utilize your brain and your ego to be arrogant, to believe that it's a positive. Well, if I do this, I know I'm gonna feel good. Yeah, you might feel good for about 7 minutes. Yeah, all right. Yep, cool. That's fine. But that ain't gonna get you nowhere. After that 7 minutes, you still got 23 hours plus of a day. Where are you going to get that? It doesn't compute and doesn't copy itself over and over and over and over and over again. It's a one-time small dose, that's it. You have to really let that ego die. You have to say to yourself, sometimes, man, I'm going to tell you the truth, when you really get to the bottom, it's when you get all the way to the bottom. Where you say to yourself, I really don't know if it's worth living. Okay? That's when you know you start hitting that. That's when you know you start really looking at yourself of the ego. And you also have to look at yourself and say, is the ego the reason I'm saying that? I say I want to kill myself. Is it because I want somebody to feel bad for me? Is it because I want somebody to look at me like maybe I need a little bit of help? Is it because I want somebody to forgive me? Is it because I want to try to forgive myself? Is it because that's the last option you believe you have above everything else? You don't believe there's any other way that you could really do anything else to get at more of a bottom. You are at the farthest bottom and you just don't think there's another choice. That is where the ego starts to die. That is where you really start to feel everything. Because now you're at the bottom. You can cry, you can laugh, you can cheer, you can be mad, you can be anything you want. You're at the bottom. There's nowhere else to go. And there's times where you might sit there and say to yourself, yeah, well, if I'm at the bottom, why even be around? I get it. Valid. But making a decision about that at the bottom in that way is going to feed that ego. Even if it's the last split second of your life, you still feed into it, right? You have to say to yourself, you know what? Not today. Nah. Maybe tomorrow. Today, I'm going to get up. I'm going to take a walk down my driveway, down and back, see how I feel. Get up, down and back, maybe you don't feel the same. Okay, so can I build on that? And if I'm building on that, am I building positive things on that? Well, if I took a walk down and back my driveway every day and I did it 10 times, good, I got a mile in. That's a mile. A week ago, you weren't doing anything except trying to talk to a bunch of women, trying to make a bunch of bad decisions, trying to drink a bunch of liquor, trying to, drink until you can't remember. Hell, you were even thinking about taking your own life. Now you're walking a mile a day, every morning, a mile a day, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Get a couple miles in, 20, 30-minute walk a day. Do that every day. But remember, you're building yourself back up. You are building yourself back up. That ego, you got to let go, man. You got to cry. You got to feel bad. If you have to reach out to somebody so that you can cry, that's fine. But remember why you're reaching out. You ain't reaching out for bad vices. You're not reaching out for those things you used to do. Let those people go. Let those vices go. Let those things that drive you into the ground go. Grab deep down and know that if you're at the rock bottom, and maybe you're not there yet, maybe you need to get yourself there. And I mean, really get yourself to rock bottom. Make sure you know what it's like. Make sure you know that your value is just to yourself. Don't be arrogant to think that your value is more than what it is to yourself, because you still have to build yourself for somebody else to be with you as well. For things to occur in your life, you still have to build yourself. You can't crutch it forever. So just remember, that ego can come when you don't even realize it. It can take over when you don't even see it. Just recognize it. Keep working on that self-realization. Keep growing. You got to grow through what you go through every day. Keep at it.